are all. Thank you for that enthusiasm. That was good. I am here to welcome you and thank you for coming to the Northwest Event Show and for your participation and the fact that this is a vibrant community. I'm also here to introduce the person who's going to introduce the next speaker. And these two folks know each other and they're part of an organization that is pretty important in our industry. And so it's a pleasure to welcome to the stage from Court Rentals, Robin Denny. She's going to stay down here, and I'm going to leave.
I am a woman of the people, so here I am. Hello, Robin Denny. I am the Regional Director of Sales for Court Party Rental. But in my spare time, I am the president of an association called NACE, the National Association of Catering and Events. And when we first heard that the Northwest Event Show was coming on, Stuart reached out and he was like, hey, we want to do all this stuff with the associations, because, you know, we have WIPA, we have MPI, we have ILEA. There's others whose acronyms escape me. But what does NACE want to do as part of this gathering of minds? And I said, well, one of our founding tenets is education. So what would be really important to us as NACE is to be able to promote our value of education and donate a speaker. Sarah, you've been donated. So we said, okay, let's go through our Rolodex, and Sarah and I have had the chance to interact over the years through different NACE conferences. I've seen her speak several times, and I love being able to bring somebody who's just authentic and fun and engaging. And I was like, okay, Sarah, what do you want to talk on? And Sarah has over 15 years of experience in catering and events. She's also an outstanding writer and copywriter. And so as the pandemic kind of took hold of everything else, she moved into the copywriting side of things, and she's like, well, I don't want to talk about copywriting because that's pretty specific. So we started brainstorming some ideas, and we came up with this topic of, am I the drama? Let's talk about workplace culture, because that felt like something that was very timely with this group right now. So without further ado, I present to you the amazing Sarah James.
Thank you. Thank you, Robin. Good morning, everyone. Oh, wow, y'all are tired. Day 2 of conference. Let's try this again. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good, that's good. Let's have some energy in the room. But it's okay if you're tired. I can accept that. It is day 2, and that's just the realities. People are tired, so that's okay. Just get prepared, because I was raised in a Pentecostal church, so we are going to do a lot of repeat after me and turn to your neighbor and say such and such, okay? Oh my God, some of y'all look scared. I'm just kidding, we're not gonna do that. Back row people, you guys were like, wait, what? My front row people were like, yeah! Except for this gal, she was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. But it's okay, back row people, sit in the back row, do your thing. I'm perfectly okay with that. I'm a back row person half of the time, depending on my mood. So if y'all wanna be in this room, check your emails, scroll on the phone while I'm sitting here and talking, I'm perfectly okay with that. And this is also, we want to invite our ultimate back row people, which is our virtual learners. Hello, virtual learners online. Those are the introverts of our industry. They've been shuttering in place for the last 3 years and loving every minute of it. They're sitting there in their PJs with their dog or their cat on their lap, really enjoying the fact that they can be here, but they can be themselves and they can be introverted. Because we all do, different kinds of things in our industry. We do have a lot of outgoing people. We do have a lot of introverts. But, things are different depending on who you are, what suits you, and what type of job do you do. Like, what do you do for a living?
Run an outdoor venture company.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That is something I would never want to do. I am not an outdoor person. To me, roughing it is staying at a Holiday Inn, so kudos to you. We are very different people, but that is perfectly okay. You would Yeah, exactly. I only wear these shoes for a few hours, and then it's time to put the sneakers back on. Do we have any event planners in the room, like straight-up wedding and event planners? We've got one of you over here. We've got a couple of you. Kudos to you guys. That is also a job that I could never do. As I was working my way up in my career as a little baby hospitality hotel person, I got told all the time, Sarah James, you need to have your own company. You need to be a wedding planner. It's like, heck no, I would never do that. I do not have that level of patience, and I know that about myself. Do we have any venue owners, venue managers here, people who sell for venues? Yeah, oh, quite a few. So you guys are the ones that bicker with the wedding planners over here. Gotcha. No, it's great. I mean, we have different personalities, so we do different things, and not everyone is the same, and that's perfectly okay. Because we're all here because we love what we do. We wouldn't be here in this room if we didn't. You know why? There was a pandemic. Anyone who didn't love being in the event industry, they're gone. They're all busy selling real estate now, right? So we're left with the best of the best, and we're left with all of us here in this room that have survived the last 3 years, and we're looking forward to this comeback that everyone's talking about, and we're bringing people back into the office, and everything is different, and we've got Gen Z coming up, and everything is new. And we're all facing it a little bit different because our personalities are different. Some of you in this room have enjoyed the start of this presentation. And the other half of you are like, woman, we have learning objectives to get to. I have my pen and paper ready. Like, enough with the bad stand-up. Let's move this presentation along, right? And that's perfectly okay. But in reality, I've already started our learning objectives. Because as the presenter in this breakout, for the first few minutes of this presentation, I have been establishing the culture that we are all going to experience over the next hour. Our little micro-culture of this breakout, right? I've created an environment of acceptance. I've let you know that it's okay to be a back row person. Do your thing. I'm perfectly okay with that. I've let people that are watching virtually say, you're in your PJs, welcome. You can be a part of this, and you can still be comfortable and be yourself as well. I've created an environment that has set expectations. Expectations for me as the presenter, and you as the audience listeners. I've let you know that it's perfectly okay to be on your phone. I've done a call to response and interacted with people so people feel fine joking around, right? I've also touched on what we have in common, right? We've identified the fact that we've all survived these last few years. We laughed about the fact that we have event planner friends that are now real estate agents because we have that shared common experience. But in addition to that, I've also talked about our differences quite a bit. Not just talked about them, not just made them okay, but I've celebrated them. So that's what I've established as the leader, right? The person in charge of this breakout. And I have a really big influence on the culture of this breakout. But I'm not the only one contributing to the culture, because each and every one of you are also contributing to the culture of this breakout by sitting here participating. If half the people in this room are really tired, and that's just the reality of it, right? I acknowledge that. Tired is okay. That's our human experience. That's our reality. Humans get tired. But if that's the case, we're going to have low energy in this room, right? As the leader, I'm trying to influence that. I'm trying to bring the energy up, just like my friend did at the beginning, presenting. He brought the energy up just by his sheer presence and the amazing outfit that he had on, right? It's the same during the Q&A section. You'll notice with a lot of Q&As at the very beginning, you ask, we have questions, and nobody raises their hands, right? There is a culture where people feel intimidated to engage. But once you have one or two people out there and they start raising their hand, then people start, oh yeah, okay, I have a question actually. And it's interesting because some presenters know this, and they will actually plant people in the audience to ask questions, to get the ball rolling, and to influence the culture of an interactive, relatable breakout. Now, I didn't do that. I didn't plant anybody. So if you guys don't have questions on the end, that's perfectly fine. I know with my personality, I get bored after 30 minutes listening to anybody, so that's perfectly okay. If you have questions, we will have time at the end. If not, we'll wrap up. That's fine too, right? There's also the culture of expectations among each and every one of you, and what you expect other people in this breakout to do. For example, if you are sitting there and you are a person who thinks being on your phone during someone presenting is rude, and you see somebody 3 seats down from you, and they're on their phone, you are instantly going to project negativity into the space of our culture. And that's not good, because negativity and toxicity breeds like wildfire in any culture. But as soon as the leader, I set the expectations that I don't mind you being on your phone, anyone here in this room, it instantly changed the dynamic. Now, if you're still somebody who thinks it's rude, you may still not like it, right? You may still be, people call you old school, this is just the way, you may not like the fact that other people in this room are on their phones. But you're no longer going to think of it as rude, because I have let everybody know it's perfectly okay. Because as a well-informed leader, I know that not everybody's brains work the same. And I know that there's some people in this room, because of that, their brains actually can listen better to what I'm saying if they are also doing something else, which is why I allow it. And some people are just bored. And that's okay too. Because if you're bored, that's on me. It's my responsibility to inform and engage. I was brought here by Seattle NACE, thank you Seattle NACE, as an industry expert on this topic. So if I'm boring you, play your Wordle, answer your emails, that's on me. Now, by the look on a couple people's faces, you've realized you've never seen your boss take responsibility for their role in contributing to the culture. If that's you, you might want to look at another job. Because those people, they rarely change, right? But I take on that responsibility. Because creating culture is done by the leader, it's done by the employees, but there's also outside influences that we can't control. If it's hot in here, people are uncomfortable, it's going to contribute to the culture, right? We're in this beautiful new convention center. We've got natural lighting. That's going to improve the culture, right? If the mic was going in and out while I'm speaking, it's not. AV is amazing. Thank you, gentlemen. That would contribute to the culture, right? Because culture is not a pizza party. Culture is something that you build. I love this one. There's so many memes. I've got a number of memes that we get to do. We've got so many memes going. And this one you see a lot. All your years of hard work haven't gone unnoticed. There's pizza and soda in the break room. So if a pizza party isn't culture, then what is? Work culture is a collaborative environment generated by the leader, the employees, and outside influences beyond our control. Now, as a leader, you can change yourself, you can influence your employees, and you can work to impact those influences outside of yourself. Okay? Let's talk about where we currently are in our post-pandemic world when it comes to work culture. We've got a lot of influences, right? We've got mental health rampant in our society. We've got remote workers. We've got a new generation that's up and coming. We've got changed expectations from our clients. Remote work is interesting because a lot of people thought that if, there's a lot of call to come back to the office, right? It's time to come back because here's what all of the employers are afraid of, is things like this. POV, me on my way to my office for my work from home job 30 seconds before my shift starts, right? Coffee in hand. Remote workers at 3 p.m. on a Friday, just jiggling their mouse until 4:45 when they sign off early. Or things like this. POV, it's 10:16 a.m. and you work from home. Sometimes you just have to be a little naughty. This is what everybody that's calling workers back into the office are afraid of. But is it the remote working or something else? Simon Sinek says, working hard for something we don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion. Now, Simon Sinek, we all know him, and this is an excellent quote. But I do have one issue with this, which is the word passion. Is it a reasonable expectation that each and every one of your employees are passionate about their job? Or do we just need them to be good workers and to do their job, enjoy their workday? Passion gets a little tricky, especially in our industry. You do have a lot of passionate people. But there's a lot of pressure with the word passion, especially for people in their 20s and 30s, our millennials and our Gen Z, right? Because they've been raised in a culture that they have been burdened with finding their passion in life. That's what this generation is told. And it's not even your full-time job. You have to have your full-time job. Then you have to have your community passion project. Then you have to have your side hustle that makes another 20 grand a year. And then you have to have 1 million people following you on your social media accounts. And you might think that's vain if you are older. But that's the expectation that was given them by all of their peers. Just like if you're, over 40, you're a Gen X or older boomer, right? Your expectation was first one in, last one out. So that's what you do. And you don't understand what's happening with your employees in their 20s and 30s. You think, well, they just don't work very hard. They don't work the way that we used to do. Untrue. They're working 4 different jobs because they're trying to find their passion, and everybody needs a side hustle, and you have to be a millionaire by 25. They're working under some incredible pressure. That's why I avoid the word passions. What do I like to use as purpose? Creating purpose. There's key components to creating purpose, and creating purpose is the key to workplace happiness. The first thing you need to do is set vision. The second thing you need to do is allow for autonomy. And the third thing that you need to do is to encourage ownership. Give me 1 second, guys. All right, how do we do this? Setting vision. Setting vision is how you connect all of your employees, from the most important senior leader all the way down to the person just hired 2 weeks ago answering their phone. There's this book that I love called Lost Connection by Johann Hari. He's got an exceptional TED Talk if you want to see a little snippet of this. Now, Lost Connection, this one was actually a TED Talk that he did about mental health and about depression. But it ties into a lot of different areas of our life. I love this book. And one of the things that he talks about that is contributing to the mental health crisis, and this is written before the pandemic, is how we've lost community and we've lost connection. And one of the stories that he talks about is a man named Joe. Joe works in a paint shop, okay? Joe's only job each and every day is to show up. People come in, I want this paint, I want this color. He pours the formula in. Paint shakes up, right? You've seen this at Lowe's and Home Depot, and he hands it to him. And he went to his therapist because he was severely depressed. And all the different lost connections that Johann Hari talks about, he talks about the lost connection to work and feeling fulfilled in your workday. And so the therapist, in talking with Joe, he was trying to encourage him to mix it up and get a different job and all these different things. And Joe went to his manager and he said, I'm unhappy here. I need this job. I need to make money, but I'm not happy with what I'm doing. He had different ideas that he wanted to do to change the way things were done. He wanted to expand some of his responsibilities, take on more work so he could feel more fulfilled. But his boss completely shut him down. No, Joe, that's not your job. Your job is to make paint. But what if his boss had a different approach? He said, Joe, I understand, but this job isn't about making paint for people. Your real job is for each and every person who walks through that door to make their day a little bit better. Your job isn't the paint, right? It takes 15 minutes to make paint for these people. But you don't know if their dog died yesterday. You don't know if they're going through a divorce. Or maybe they just got a brand new job themselves that they're super excited and want to talk to somebody about, right? What if they have something else going on in their lives? Good, bad, it doesn't matter. Joe, your job is not to make the paint. Your job is to make their day better. Smile on your face, being real, being authentic, talking to them. You guys see this when you go, the bus driver, you love to ride their bus, or the person taking your tickets, what looks like a very menial, unimportant job, and they make your day simply for their personality. I used to do this with my conference services managers. I love a conference service manager, and I have had quite a few work for me when I worked in hotels over the years. And it's a tough, tough job. And I would set vision by having meetings and telling them this. Look, your job is not to make this BEO. Your job is not to help them pick out their food. Your job is to help facilitate some of the greatest ideas in the world. We have this one conference that comes to San Antonio every year. It's the Breast Cancer Symposium. Your job, when people come to this hotel for some of these meetings, is to facilitate the potential breakthroughs that could eradicate breast cancer in the next 10 years. How do you do that? You make sure the temperature is good in the room. You make sure you have break food when they're leaving there that helps, get their mind going. You're not writing BEOs, you're changing the world, right? That's setting vision. I love this. There's this one company who says their goal, this is vision, the goal was to create a product to answer a fundamental consumer need, democratize the art of writing, and gave everyone the power of creative expression. What company was that? Bic. It's pens, right? But that's how you create vision, because for them, it's not just pens. To them, they're creating a product that's going to change the world. That's setting vision. Now, I will say that you can overdo this. Again, just like passion is a buzzword that I'm not a fan of, work family is right up there. Let me tell you, if I interview with a company and I ask them about their culture and they say, we're like a family, I'm gonna run, because I don't know about some of y'all's families, but I've met a lot of families and most of them are dysfunctional, right? That is not something I want to be identified with. I love my family, they're great. But families are tricky. There's not boundaries in families. We're family? Does that mean you're gonna be texting me at 9 p.m. on a Monday night about something that could have been handled tomorrow? Is that what the work family means? Now, a lot of you work with you have small companies. We have a lot of those in our industry. And it is true, in some of these smaller companies, there is a dynamic that brings a lot of people together. They are the kind of people that if you end up in the hospital, they're gonna be bringing food to your home every day. So I'm not saying that there's not an element there, but be careful because you want purpose and vision in your work, but you also need boundaries. WeWork is something that didn't have boundaries. Anybody ever see the documentary or the miniseries about WeWork? This fascinating crash of a company, a couple nods heads, it's so good. They had this saying, thank God it's Monday, right? Instead of TGIF, work is the greatest thing. Zero boundaries, right? This is We Crashed. This is the miniseries. I watched the documentary and the miniseries right after. They were so fascinating. And the whole thing was, again, overdoing the vision, not understanding that people do want a purposeful work environment, but they also want a purposeful life. There's this really great book. I am a big fan of this podcast called Hidden Brain, and this book was featured on there. David Graeber, really fascinating guy, he wrote this really small article called BS Jobs. It was one article, and he got emails from across the country about other people who read this and were like, oh my God, I have a BS job. That's me. People in BS jobs are the type of people that feel like their work is absolutely meaningless and they have no control over their day-to-day life, just like Jed the painter, right? In BS jobs, he talks about the fact that some of these are like office jobs and where there's multiple layers, and our event industry is a little bit different. But what I wanted to bring out about this book and why it was so interesting to me was the fact that people had a lack of autonomy. David Graeber himself talked about his very first job. He was a dishwasher. Again, seems menial, seems unimportant, but it's his very first job, and he's there with all of his other dishwashers. They're like, hey, let's develop a system. Like the way that we've been told to do this is kind of slow. It takes longer than it should. So him and his other workers, right, all the other dishwashers, they got together and they developed a brand new system to wash the dishes in half the time. They were hustling, they were excited that they did it. Boom, 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 done. A 4-hour job done in 2. Well, their boss walks in. They're sitting around. They're celebrating the job they got done. You think he was excited? What? No. What are you guys standing around for? Oh, well, we did all the work. We did everything. Yeah, but you can't just stand around. I'm paying you to do a job. Are you? Because they did the job. Or are you thinking you're paying them to work a certain amount of hours? Do we want to get the job done? Do you want your employees to get the job done? Or do you want them to work a certain amount of hours? It's not the same thing. Really, why don't you guys sweep them up then? Well, we already did that. Well, the baseboards, we just did the baseboards yesterday. Well, you need to find something to do, just redo them. Do you think they ever come up with a better idea to improve that company ever again? No. They learned, I need to do things the old way, and I need to do it slowly, rather than come up with, have some autonomy, and do the work the way that I want to do it. And it's interesting because, it might just be dishwashing, but they had zero autonomy in the way that they were doing it. So in addition to setting the vision, you need to create autonomy for the people who are actually working. They don't need to do things the way that you do it. And I know that's hard to hear because I'm a control freak and I do everything a certain way. And when I was a new leader, I expected everybody else to as well. No, the paper clip does not go at the top, right? It's not a staple. No, and it's a paper clip. The paper clip has to go at the side of the stack of papers. Mistakes were made. Mistakes were made. I did not learn this overnight. The hardest thing to do as a leader is to let people have control of their own work. But it also makes the best leaders. This is Peter Ubel. He works at Duke University. He did a really interesting study where he put people in a room. He said, okay, we're going to give you, you're going to sit in the room for 5 minutes. You can either sit in the room and you can do nothing, or you can sit in the room and at that point, you can do some puzzles. And we'll pay you. What do you want to get paid? So half the people are like, I'm just going to sit there. That's fine. And the other half of the people said, oh, no, I want to do puzzles. I'll do puzzles, but you're going to have to pay me $5. Okay. But at the end, the people who sat there and did nothing reported having a worse experience than the people who did the puzzles. And then they switched it up, and it was the other way around. And so the people who did the puzzles the first time said, no, I still want to do the puzzles. I don't care if you pay me because I'm bored. And what does that tell us? It tells us that people actually do like to work. I know that comes as a surprise if you're a boss and you're seeing the way that our culture is right now and the remote workers and all these memes that are coming across about people trying to do as little work as possible. Those people, they don't have purpose, they don't have autonomy, and they have no ownership in their job. Babies are this way. Babies show us how, and kids, they show us how much people like to work. When babies start to grow, they realize that they can sit here and they can push this ball on this table and it's going to go rolling. And you pick up the ball and you give it to the baby. They push it again, it goes rolling. They get excited. They start squealing with laughter. All they're doing is pushing a ball. But they've realized they can control the world around them. And then what happens? They become a toddler. They lose control. They lose their autonomy. They're trying to push too much around them, and they get frustrated. These are your employees. They want to control the world around them. If they can do that, they will enjoy this, right? This is my babies. People actually love to work. They love that fulfillment given the right scenario. It's a perfect example. Anyone recognize this? Sims, right? Who loves playing The Sims? My kids do. This is a great example. People will spend hours on The Sims. And what are they doing? They're building a house. They're getting a job. They're taking care of babies and having families. And I tell my 17-year-old, can you please go unload the dishwasher? What? No, I don't want to do that. Because they're being told what to do. In this world, they have complete autonomy, right? The other thing that these types of games do really well is they create an environment where there's short-term and long-term goals, right? Instant gratification, right? But then I'm also working towards an end goal. The other thing that these do really, really well is they create an environment where failure does not have real-world consequences. If you give someone autonomy and ownership in their job, they are going to make mistakes, even mistakes that can cost your company money. That's a hard pill to swallow. But you and them will be better for it. You've got to create an environment where mistakes where you don't jump all over somebody for mistakes, but they're actually saying, hey, you made a mistake because you tried something new, and congratulations. That's amazing, right? The hallmark of a healthy creative culture is that people feel free to share ideas, opinions, and criticisms. President Pixar. Create an environment. We are creative people. We need an environment that fosters that. Making mistakes is a part of that, right? We also need to communicate effectively. This is how we create ownership, our third part. Daring leaders work to make sure people can be themselves and feel a sense of belonging, right? Just like I said, be yourself, be a back row person, and learn virtually, be in front row and take notes that are completely color-coded and have 17 different points, do you, right? A good leader does that. Because it's hard to find the right employees. Some people are good at their job, and some people are a good employee. You rarely get both. I'd rather have somebody good at their job. I've had people that are good at their job, salespeople, mostly. They're terrible employees. They're late all the time. They don't turn the reports in. But they sell more than anybody else. Then I have somebody, they're a good employee. I love them. They're so easy. But they don't make their numbers. You got to look for both. But if you communicate with your employees, you can influence this. Again, you can't change your employees. Who you have hired is who you've hired. Now, somebody's going to come up to me afterwards and we're like, well, Sarah James, people can change. I've changed. I had this friend, she just went through therapy. You are not their therapist, okay? So we're not talking about what the core of who your employees are is who they are. You have got them fully baked. Now, if they're young, you have a better influence over them. That's absolutely true. But you're not going to change the core of who they are. So don't put a square peg in a round hole. You need to find what works for them. And you can also do that through great communication. This book, Fierce Conversations, is one of the best books I have ever read that it influenced my life in the way that I work and in my personal relationships. Susan Scott had a follow-up, Fierce Leadership. And I loved both of these books because her whole approach to help people take ownership is effective communication. You as a leader communicating with your employees. And you do that through authenticity. Because I tell you what, you can't fake care. If you do not care personally for your employees, they are going to know it. But sometimes it's hard to break it down. As a leader, for me, I was in a hotel industry, which was very corporate and very buttoned up. And believe it or not, it took me a very long time to show people in my team that I cared. Because I was trying to be professional. It was my first time as a director, right? I was more concerned with what my boss thought of me than what my employees thought of me. And that was a mistake. Lessons have been learned. Susan Scott says, never be afraid of the conversations you are having. Be afraid of the conversations you are not having. And this is 100% true. Because you need to sit down with your employees and understand who they are. If they're good at their job or they're a good employee, how can you help them have vision, create autonomy, and have ownership over their world in order to be both? You do that through fierce conversations. You need to sit down with them and find out what is working in their day-to-day, what's not working in their day-to-day. She says everyone wants one person in the world to whom they can tell the truth and from whom they will hear the truth. If you have a square peg in a round hole, you need to be honest with that person. And you may need to find out what works. If you just hired an admin you were really excited about, recent hospitality graduate, great in the interview, interviewed fantastically. Man, they're creative, they're energetic. I love that. You hire them as your admin, and you find out they are not good with organization, which is one thing you really need your admin to be good at. What do? Are they good at their job? No. Not really, but you know they're a good hire. So we need to have an honest and truthful conversation with them. What can we do to make it work? Because I guarantee it, there's not a lot of better people out there than what you currently got. If you think like, well, this person, no. Try to find somebody new. It's not easy. You're better off working with the people that you currently have and having truthful, honest conversations and figuring out how you can make it work. So maybe that admin isn't super great with organization. Or maybe they organize in ways that are just different from you. Or maybe they're in a situation that, okay, yeah, I'm not very good at this, organizing the files the way that I'm supposed to do. Is it really that important? But then you find out this person had a minor in social media marketing, and you're spending $2,300 a month hiring this company when you could give her ownership of that and make her feel fulfilled, give her autonomy, give her this little project. She'll get excited and engaged. Now you have a new social media person. You maybe still need an admin. But you found a really good hire and you want to make sure you utilize that. One-on-one meetings is the best way to facilitate these conversations, right? Because you're not going to be in a group morning meeting and talking about the day or powwowing about some events that are coming up and, call somebody out directly, in front of other people. That's no, right? We don't want to do that. So your one-on-one meetings are a great way to do this and a great way to do it effectively. With my one-on-one meetings, I had 3 principles when I would sit down. What do I need to start doing? What do I need to stop doing? And what do I need as your boss to keep doing to make you an effective employee? Because what did I tell you? The leader takes the number 1 responsibility for culture. The employees take the second, and then there's outside factors. But I can influence this by using my fierce conversation skills. This isn't in the book, this was me, but it's the same principle, right? I can use those skills in order to understand where my employees are at. What am I doing as your leader that is stopping you from being a good employee? It'll blow your employees' minds when you say that. Because that is your number 1 job as the boss, is to make sure they're good at their job, to facilitate a culture and an environment that helps them out, right? And having these conversations and then following up every single month to see how you're doing is the best way to do that. It changes the culture of your business or your sub-department within your bigger culture of a company drastically because they understand that you're there for them. It is more important, like I said, lesson I learned, that what your employees think of you than what your boss thinks of you. And especially if you are the boss of your company and you've got no one else telling you what to do, you need to listen to your employees. Because you might think, right, with Gen Z and the influence that they have on our work world today, they're coming, man. These Gen Z are coming. And I know when you were growing up in the industry, like I was, if I was sitting there and I was, told to take notes for this very important meeting, and I raised my hand after being there 3 months and said, well, I have an idea to make this better, all heads would turn to me like, what? No, you're just the admin. It doesn't work like that anymore. Sorry if you don't like it, but that's the reality. And it's not going to change, right? I had someone, these are so funny, explaining to a boomer, this is their world, right? Explaining to a boomer who makes 4 times my salary how to save a PDF. I see a lot of these memes. When my manager says she's been at the company for 26 years and I'm thinking of bouncing after 1 year and 6 months, also very common. Oh, I love this one. Do you think Devil Wears Prada was supposed to be aspirational? Millennials in their 20s versus Gen Z in their 20s. Yeah, they're not the same. Quit calling them all millennials. There's Gen Z. Those are the people in their 20s. Gen Zs also won't even apply to the job if the salary wasn't listed. Very, very common. Recently hired a young woman. Yesterday was her first day. She attended 1 meeting and submitted her resignation. She said the vibes are off. I've had 3 friends in the last 6 months tell me something exactly like this happened. So if you want the best talent to make your company the best, you have got to start creating a culture that's going to foster that, or these people will go somewhere else. They do not care, right? Would you like to join a fast-paced and dynamic team? I don't know, do you have a slow and chilled out team available? Because that sounds very stressful, right? Passion versus purpose, that's what that's all about. When your boss tells you you're excelling at your job, but the company can't promote you or give you a raise at this time, I'll just be shaking through the pain, right? Oh, this is another thing. A new level of job application hell just dropped. How do you feel life has worked out for you so far? Record a video, 2 to 5 minutes, paste the link here. No, that's going to drive people away. That's not the kind of culture that's going to work. But all these other things that we've talked about, setting vision, creating autonomy, giving your people ownership so that they are masters of their own job universe, while also having healthy boundaries and understanding they have a personal life, that is what's going to work. So that you can have the best employees, put on the best events, and everybody can go home at the end of the day and shut their phones off. All right? Anyone got it? Oh, where's my question slide? Do we have any questions? Thank you very much, by the way. Do we have any questions? Rob and Denny's going to take some questions. Here it is.
Oh, yeah. Now you can. Well, I was laughing because we actually had an employee who made it like 3 days, and she went to lunch and never came back.
Yeah. Happens.
Questions for Sarah?
We got one in the back.
Ah, wait for the mic, please, sir. We are speaking to our at-home audience as well.
Start, stop, keep, I love that. That's great, that's perfect. The bottom of the slide said one-on-one. In 40 years, one-on-ones have never worked for me because invariably one of the two parties misunderstands what the takeaway was. So I sort of instituted a policy of having a mediator, third person, whether it's an admin type taking notes or somebody else just to sort of feel the room, make sure the people are communicating. Do you have any thoughts on this one-on-one versus, because what would happen is if somebody wasn't happy or they decided to interpret that one-on-one in a direction they thought it should go, then you'd end up with just two people arguing about what the intent of the takeaway was. What's your feeling on how to run an effective one-on-one besides start, stop, keep?
I mean, that was the basis of mine. The things with the one-on-ones, and I hear what you're saying, to me, 100%, and I hear that you're saying that it's a communication issue. You and your employee were not effectively communicating. You had to have a third party to interpret what the meeting was. Here's the thing about the up-and-coming generation that's really important to understand. There's a lot of memes, I didn't include one today, but you'll see a lot of memes out there that you get called them to the office and they get terrified. They're like, that's it, I'm in trouble, what did I do wrong, right? They get scared very, very easily. And so you need to make sure that they understand that this one-on-one is not a monthly performance review. This one-on-one is for you to tell me how you, as an employee, feel that I am doing. This is not an assessment of your performance, this is an assessment of mine. Now, inevitably, there might be some things I need to address. But if you are addressing concerns with that employee on a consistent basis every single month, we have a problem. You either need to have that, you need to have a fierce and authentic conversation. And again, read that whole book, dude. It's an incredible communication book, right? But that's what they have to understand, because if you're just there, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but if you have things and feedback for them every month on what they need to do better, it's going to change that dynamic. That one-on-one is now going to be intimidating for them, right? So the points at the end of my one-on-ones, and again, like you said, people do them differently, but my purpose at the end of the one-on-one was my performance and what I needed to change and do differently. And if I had some feedback from them, I never waited for the one-on-one. That's a part of fierce conversations. I'm not going to wait till you're sitting down in front of me and I'm behind my desk taking notes and looking authoritative with all my awards and certificates behind me. Half the time we would do a walking one-on-one. We'd go get coffee. I love a walking meeting, right? Really changes the energy. And so if I have a problem with things that you're doing, I'm going to address those in the moment. I'm not going to save them for the one-on-one. So hopefully that helps. And then, yes, I would recommend that book. It's on Audible. It does a really good job. But it depends on your objectives of your one-on-one. That was always my objective. That's how I did them.
Who else has some questions for our speaker?
Told you I didn't plan anybody. We've got one up here.
I wore my sneakers.
I would have got my suit. So my question, I've been in your shoes, but I'm currently the employee right now. How do you recommend, or in any facet of getting my boss to try to figure out one-on-ones like that? Because he's very new to managing people. Mm-hmm. And how can I be better versus, oh, just checking in, how's it going, what projects are you working on? You're like, this is not helpful for me. Just any thoughts on that?
There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. Your boss is who they are. Just like my employees, they are who they are. If they want to be a better boss, they're going to do it through going to classes, reading books, and just experience. Young and new managers, it's a tough thing because everyone's coming in with something to prove the first time they're the boss. I did it, And there's things about my style, just my personality that worked right out of the gate. And then there's some things that I had to learn. And that's why I mentioned earlier, when I mentioned that I take responsibility for the effectiveness of this breakout because I am the leader of this breakout, some of you guys, again, some of y'all's faces like, oh, I've never seen my boss take responsibility. You're not going to change them, so it's either going to work or it's not going to work. Yeah, I think we had one here.
Yeah.
On the fierce conversation front, though, I would say I took a class in fierce conversation, and I used it for a conversation with a boss. I don't know if it changed his behavior, but it made a huge difference for me.
That is a really good point. I think I stand corrected because I will say in that Fierce Conversation books, it's really about breaking down the barrier of who we come in with in conversations and how to be real and authentic. It helped me a lot with clients, right? That's the area that influenced my life the most. But yeah, it was the same thing, using some of her principles. She'll give you tips in there to talk about how to just come in and just be real and honest and those types of things. That's a really good point.
Sarah, do you use any kind of personality profiles or anything to kind of help engage communication between your team?
Oh, yes, I do. So I mentioned I grew up in a Pentecostal church. My daddy was a pastor, and my parents also taught family counseling and parent counseling and things like this. So in my world, when I was growing up, we grew up, then in the church, there was like the 4 basic personality types, and there's 100 different reiterations of the 4 basic personality types, but that's what we grew up with. And it was so a part of the culture of my family when I met a new friend or had a new, well, I was allowed to have boyfriends, but, met a new friend, my parents would ask me, and what is their personality type, right? So I actually teach a course on personality types when it comes to sales and conversations. It makes a big difference. I will say there's no right or there's no wrong personality. For example, I love to hire pessimists, and people are always surprised to hear that. Pessimists are fantastic. That's not the same as negative toxicity. A pessimist, the reason they are the way that they are is because they can foresee problems down the road. So they're always thinking about the bad things that can happen, but what better do you want an event planner but somebody who can see the problems down the road? So you do have to adapt because, and I mentioned autonomy and the way they work, that's a really great example. If I have a personality that is a little extroverted, a little introverted, my introverted side is super organized, and I like to do everything a certain way, I had to learn how to not put that on my outgoing, super sociable salesperson who was maybe not the best employee, but was incredible at her job. I had a conference services manager, same thing. She had papers everywhere. We came up with an agreement that I would go into her cubicle once a month and I would clean up all the papers. It was a stress reliever for me, and she got to organize herself the way, and then she would come back in the afternoon and all of her papers would be organized, and it was a win-win.
That's amazing. We have time for one more question. Yes, Mackenzie.
So I guess I'm wondering, when you have an employee, like you were saying, how they're a good worker or a good, what was the 2?
Good at their job or a good
Good
employee.
at their job or good employee. So how do you find the boundary of when it's time to actually let them go?
Yeah,
When it starts to become a problem.
Yeah, and that's where the authentic conversations will come from. As I mentioned, I will do everything I can possibly do to keep somebody and find what works. It could be shifting around responsibilities. It could be, maybe asking them, how do you think, okay, I know this is what I told you that I want you to do. Do you have a different way of doing it that's going to work for you? But at the end of the day, if they are not effective at their job and they're a really difficult employee, do your paper trail, and you've given them the opportunity, you've had these one-on-ones, you've done everything you possibly can to influence that person, then it's time to cut the cord. Because again, they're not going to change the essential person of who they are, and they're a bad fit. And you're spending all of your time with the wayward employee that's not working out instead of focusing on your employees that are great at their jobs. Because the really good employees tend to get ignored because it's the employees that aren't working out that we have to spend a lot of time and energy in. And I think most people, you're intuitive, you can tell a lot from somebody in an interview, especially if you study personality types, but within 6 months, if you've given, and then it's just time. Yeah, good question.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for this hour of culture. Appreciate it.